Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Immortality Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Jake, here with Josh.
Hello.
Maybe you noticed something different about the tea table today if you're watching on the video. There's no gaiwan. What I have here is a shibori dashi. So what does that mean? It means we're going to drink Japanese tea. Something I don't think we've done yet. So it's gaiwan-like, right? It's like a gaiwan. I'm gonna basically treat it like a gaiwan for all intents and purposes. This one's a little small. You can get them bigger. This is just the one that I own. You're still preheating the vessels and everything. It's kind of a shallow vessel. It's very small. It has just a little bit of a flare here, like a lip. What that's gonna do is it's gonna let us pour tea better for a Japanese tea than a gaiwan would. And that's because you can see how small and fine these leaves are. So this is Gyokuro. It's a Gokujou Gyokuro. So we sell this online as Exquisite. That's how we translate it, Exquisite Gyokuro. What that means is it's kind of a blend of higher quality leaves from a certain area. No reason we can't get the aroma factor still. I'm going to pass that over to Josh.
This is exciting.
Yeah. Japanese loose leaf teas are very different than Chinese loose leaf teas. Yeah.
Wow.
Creamy, right?
Creamy, very creamy.
Yeah, and it's interesting that just in the aroma there's like some kind of like faint sea vegetable note also. In addition to using a certain vessel, you don't really have to do this if you're doing it at home. I just happen to have this. It's really good for brewing Japanese tea. You could certainly use a larger pot. Kyushu pots are quite common. That's the pot with like a side handle for brewing loose leaf Japanese tea. They just have a screen in them, and they're kind of just a bigger vessel, more like a Western teapot, but without a basket. Yeah, I wouldn't use a gaiwan. I think it would be very difficult to properly strain and filter with a gaiwan that leaves this fine. And the other thing that we're gonna do that's different is steep this at a much lower temperature. So I just have my water in a thermos here at boiled to 165. It doesn't have to be like precise. It's kind of like at your discretion. But most teas we steep at or near boiling. Some Chinese greens we will do lower than that, maybe 175. This is like much lower than you would want to brew any Chinese style tea at. So let's just do the first steep, then we can talk a little more about what it is and what we're drinking. So cool water, 165. I'm gonna do pretty fast on this steep, maybe 10 or 20 seconds. Because the water's a little lower temperature, you can steep a little longer. I did use a pretty high brew ratio, like leaf to water ratio. So there's a lot of leaf for not a lot of water, and lower temperature water. So look how bright that is.
Wow.
These teas are notoriously difficult to brew if you're most experienced with Chinese style. I think that's nice. That's a good. Gyokuro should be it should be very soft, very round, and with a strong umami characteristic. So umami is it's one of the main things you can taste. It's sort of like a sea savoriness. Like there's a lot of things have that, like fish, mushrooms, soy sauce. It's somewhat ubiquitous in like Japanese cooking specifically. What do you think, Josh?
It was good. It definitely had the umami texture, but then there was also some type of like very subtle melon. Just something small.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but it was like there was definitely the kind of vegetableness in there. It was good.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I want to try another one really like steep more.
Okay, that's okay.
Because this is really exciting.
So this I'm going to again, Japanese green teas are like kind of hard to dial in. I'm actually going to steep this a little shorter than the last one, just because the first steep opens it up a little, and now this steep it's going to be a little more open. A hilariously small amount of tea. This vessel's probably like 65 milliliters.
How would you suggest people brew their Japanese green tea at home?
Well,
is there an easy way if you don't have this amazing tea brewing vessel?
Yeah, so it works just fine in a teapot. Again, you just want to cool the water. Like 165 is great if you have like some way to measure the water. Otherwise, just splash a good amount of cold water in with your boiling water, maybe like a quarter or a third. It should get you like to around that temperature.
Wow.
Josh made a face and said, "Wow."
That is extremely different than a Chinese green tea.
In what way?
the umami came out like insanely just
Yeah.
seaweed.
Yeah, this one's
fish.
very brothy.
Yeah, almost like a soup broth, like
Yeah.
literally like a seaweed soup broth.
Yeah, that's kind of what Gyokuro is all about. So Gyokuro, there's a few main types of Japanese tea, like everyone's heard of matcha, probably powdered green tea, the more traditional form. Then there's sencha, so that's like the first kind of whole leaf green tea people ever consumed in Japan. It's still like the most popular kind that's produced and consumed in the country. And then Gyokuro is somewhat different than sencha. About 0.5% of the green tea in Japan is Gyokuro, so not very much. For something to be Gyokuro, it has to be shaded as it's growing, and we've talked about this a lot in the past about how tea plants that experience harsher growing conditions tend to develop more interesting characteristics. So like a high mountain oolong gets like less oxygen, has to like fight a little harder, produce a little more nutrition. This one is kind of the same idea. When they shade the bushes, they cast a net over them that restricts the amount of sunlight they get. So what the tea plants do is produce more chlorophyll, and that's what gives it the richer, denser flavor as opposed to like other green teas.
Let's do another one because
Yeah.
I almost tasted miso like qualities and
Yeah, this is a large leaf to water ratio.
along with the shade growing of the Gyokuro tea. What else do they do within the processing that helps give it that umami kind of savory fish, soy saucy quality, seaweed?
So the thing about Japanese greens, the whole leaf green teas anyway, that makes them different than Chinese green teas is that the kill green, the process that arrests the oxidation in the leaves that keeps from turning into black tea, the kill green is done through steaming. In China, it's usually done through firing or frying, like an oven or a wok. The steaming seems to give it like a more gentle, round quality. The flavors tend to be like a little less sharp and floral as opposed to Chinese greens, whereas there's more like richness, sea vegetable notes. I think that has a lot to do with the steaming process. Tea was like first brought to Japan in around the 8th century, and it was back then. It was like before there was even like really the technology to create whole leaf tea. It was brick tea, probably closest to like what we would consider like pu'er or heicha now, like probably a little closer to that, like shaved off brick tea. And it was only consumed really by monks for the first few centuries. More in like the 12th century, it was introduced to like the upper classes, like the shogunate, the samurai. That's when like the upper classes of Japan started drinking tea, and the formal matcha tea ceremony became like a thing. So matcha was developed from the brick tea, right? That's why there's still powdered tea that's consumed in Japan. Matcha is definitely a bit of a trend now. Matcha lattes are like one of the things we sell like most of in the cafe in like America in 2021, and it's not just us. Like it's all over the place. It's huge. Matcha evolves from the brick tea because it was like it was shaved into boiling water and like consumed whole like that. It's not until the 18th century in Japan that you get whole leaf tea, sencha. So tea that's steeped as leaves, and then the leaves are taken out. You're not actually consuming the leaves. Today, as like many things are in Japan, tea production is a pretty well-oiled machine right now. It's extremely efficient. The technology is extremely advanced. Everything's like basically done by like these like fine-tuned machines. And tea masters.
So then sencha was created, and then after that, then they were able to create Gyokuro.
Gyokuro, yeah.
Gyokuro.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Gyokuro is it could be sencha, but it's shaded for an extra period.
Okay.
Usually there are specific cultivars that are made into Gyokuro, but it could theoretically be made from any Japanese green tea cultivar. It's not. The definition is based on processing, not leaf. That's what makes something a sencha or a gyokuro or a tincha or a genmaicha or a hojicha or a kukicha.
In the cafe and even on the tea shop, do you see people primarily split between, oh, I'm a Chinese green tea drinker, oh, I prefer Japanese, or like is there kind of a happy middle ground for the two? Because this is extremely different, and honestly, I like it because I like savory stuff too, and then I like seaweed. I really love seaweed flavors. I don't know.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. I love Japanese cuisine. But yeah, usually when someone asks for a green tea, when they're just in the cafe, you're working. Someone like wants a pot of tea. They just say green tea. The first thing I usually ask them is if they want a Chinese green tea or a Japanese green tea, and then that'll lead to like kind of having to explain the difference. I think most of the time people break towards Chinese green teas, but there's definitely a subset of people that really loves the Japanese greens. I personally started my whole tea journey with sencha and Gyokuro. That was the first tea that like really opened my eyes to, how interesting tea was. How it's not just this like burn leaf beverage, but there's like complexity, there's body, there's feeling.
I really like this one. Can we try another one?
Yeah, of course.
I wonder how many times you can steep this.
We're probably getting to the end. I mean, the guy wants so heavily leafed though. I don't know. It's basically just like a patty right now. So this one, this comes from. So like I was saying, this tea is a blend of high quality material. It's from the Shirakawa district around Uji in Japan. Uji is historically one of the main classical tea producing regions. It was it became the big area for tea growing when matcha first became popular in the 11th and 12th centuries. Uji certainly has the best reputation for producing gyokuro specifically. True Uji Gyokuro fetches like a much higher price than usually than teas from outside from other growing regions in Japan. I will say also this is not fresh tea either. This is a 2020 harvest, so we're drinking this in midsummer 2021 right now. But like I was saying with like modern technology, this one was basically immediately vacuum sealed and refrigerated after being picked and finished, so it retains a lot of the freshness. Another consideration, of course, is that it's actually beneficial for Gyokuro to rest for a little while. It's not necessarily best to be consumed fresh because of the extra processing. It lets the processing rest, it lets the steam settle, kind of lets the flavors like mellow out and deepen.
It's extremely flavorful, and it's extremely savory.
Yeah.
And it really is almost like a soup broth, which I like because it's almost like I'm eating something.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. I also find that these teas, and this is actually something you can measure. It's not just my usual nonsense talk. These teas tend to be higher in L-theanine. So that's the calming agent in tea. That's what makes you like feel like, the caffeine is what makes you feel alert, but the L-theanine is what makes you feel calm. So like it's not like a cup of coffee, right? Like tea is a very different experience than coffee, where you're just getting caffeine and kind of just a jolt. This tea has kind of like a strong like relaxing quality, in addition to like a pick me up, which is very nice. I find for like doing work, needing to focus on something like a Japanese green tea is great for that.
How would you suggest this tea to anyone listening right now?
Obviously, this tea is great if you like Gyokuro. This is a high-quality Gyokuro from a historically famous area. It's a really good example of what Gyokuro can be. Very complex. Like there's melon, seed notes, like ocean vegetable, umami. It's got tons of complexity, so it's great for anyone who likes Japanese green tea. Like I was hinting at earlier, I think it would be appropriate for someone who needs like a good like work tea. Some like midday thing that you could sip while like researching or writing or doing computer work.
It's refreshing too. Mm-hmm. I could feel like how it could be refreshing. Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a pretty good like meal pairing tea generally too. Like it's pretty big in the mouth, so it doesn't easily get overwhelmed by food. This is like a good quality tea that I can actually drink while I'm like eating something.
What kind of Japanese teas do you have on the website, and how much is this one selling for?
Yes, so this one sells for a little more than the other ones, about $12 an ounce. We've got a couple other Gyokuros, we've got some senchas, some other Japanese kinds of tea, kuki-cha, hoji-cha. Those are processed differently. So sencha, not shaded or not shaded for very long. Those tend to be a little like less deep, maybe a little more fresh than Gyokuro. We have a couple of senchas that I do really enjoy. Different varietals, and a really nice roasted green tea as well. Not something you usually see.
And then how is your matcha selection? Not to take away the attention from the Gyokuro.
Yeah, so our matcha, all of our matcha is stone ground on order. So anything you're getting in your matcha latte, if that's what floats your boat, is actually flown in from Japan on demand. It's not through a distributor. We get it directly from the mill.
Wow. So that's got to blow people away in the cafe and even when they get their matcha.
Yeah. No, we certainly have, like, not to toot our horn, but the best matcha in town.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do in Boulder, Colorado.
Well, that's the power of working directly with your suppliers and having relationships with wholesalers, farmers, mills, producers.
Did it take a long time to find that kind of direct connection with the high quality tea producers in Japan?
In Japan, absolutely, yeah. It's been very hard to crack the Japanese market. Japan, everything is like, it's a small area. Everything's like very industrialized and mechanized. Most tea in Japan is milled, so that means it's just gathered up from all these different farms and thrown together and bought at auctions. We actually are lucky to work with a supplier who specializes in single field teas, so teas from specific fields, specific farm, the names of the farmers. This one, of course, is a blend, but it's a very intentionally created blend.
So that's something for all the listeners to know, that if you like Japanese green tea or possibly love Japanese green tea, you should really try to buy some from the Trident Tea website just to see how it compares to the other green tea that you're sourcing and finding.
Yeah.
So, that's great to have such a direct connection.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about this Gyokuro Japanese green tea?
Well, it's steeped certainly a lot longer than I expected. I'm gonna push it for one more here. You could probably increase the temperature at this rate. I just have water in a thermos, so I can't really do that. But you can. One thing you can do steeping them is decrease the steep time and increase the temperature. But just play with it. There's a lot of different ways to make it. You could do hotter water, and you probably bring out some different flavors. I was really going for a more traditional brewing method this time, just trying to get a big umami-rich cup. But there's lots of ways to do it. Don't be intimidated by the specialized tea equipment. You can't really screw up good tea. I believe that strongly. Good tea is good tea.
What steep is this?
The 5th or the 6th, I think.
Nice.
Just a few little drops. Oh my God. Good to the last drop. I'm gonna copyright that one.
This one threw me for a really nice curveball.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we finally got to get around to a Japanese tea, because Japanese teas are, like I said, very close to my heart. Where I started my own sort of tea experience. It's still nice, subtle, grassy,
wonderful,
rich. Yeah,
really wonderful.
Melon and seed. Yeah. Watermelon. You get that watermelon note.
Oh yeah. The melon.
Isn't that interesting? But I feel like there's a very clear watermelon, which is weird.
Let's try another one.
Okay. I want to taste the watermelon.
Because I was getting at the beginning, it was almost like a half ripe honeydew, but it wasn't quite a cantaloupe, but it had this texture. It's the creaminess went into some type of melon structure. So yeah,
Japanese green teas are just very unique. They have their own distinct cultural history from Chinese greens, having been developed on a small island nation. It's just really interesting to see all the different ways, all the different journeys this one plant has been on, and the many roads that it's traveled and the many expressions that it has. So you're not just tasting tea, right? You're tasting kind of a sip of history and people's lives and the land that they've lived on.
That's definitely what I appreciate about recording these episodes, is just to explore the tea-verse, because there really is a tea universe out there.
Oh yeah, and it's dramatic too at times. Wars,
oh yeah,
espionage, yeah, tea history is human history.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I get more toasted sesame in that one.
I got watermelon rind, not
Nice.
not the pink one, but
Yeah,
it's just that savoriness. It just tastes like a broth.
that's really enjoyable. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us once again. Again, I'm Jake here with Josh. Hope you enjoyed your time with us at the tea table. Until next time, take care.